Hello, welcome to this episode of Gimme Shelter Security in Azure. Today we're going to do a start of Azure Sentinel, and we're going to do this as a two-parter. As many of you follow the way I had this series scheduled, Azure Sentinel is the last episode of the Security in Azure piece of this series, and we're going to start up next week with the Microsoft 365 portion of the Gimme Shelter series. So we're going to start part two, which is going to be security in Microsoft 365, and we're going to do a second part of Azure Sentinel in that episode. So make sure if you want the full components of Azure Sentinel that you tune in to next week's episode or catch next week's episode for part two, episode one of security in Microsoft 365, as we'll talk more about connecting Microsoft 365 services to Azure. And we'll talk about that at the end of this episode as well. But let's get into this particular episode now. I'm Dwayne Natwick. I'm a Microsoft MVP and certified in multiple Azure and Microsoft 365 role-based certifications, such as Azure Security Engineer Associate, as well as Microsoft 365 Security Admin Associate. I have multiple years in the industry. I also have my CISSP. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, regional lead for that program, as well as a cloud training architect lead for Opsagility and Skill Me Up Academy. So we're going to cover the main topics, a quick overview of Azure Sentinel. We're going to talk about data connectors, workbooks, incidents, how to utilize playbooks for incident response and hunting, and then we'll show a quick demo on how easy it is to get started within. So let's start off by talking about Azure Sentinel. Azure Sentinel is Microsoft's cloud-based SIEM solution, and for those of you not familiar with what a SIEM is, it's SIEM. It is a security incident and event management system, and it is generally used by organizations that run a security operations center. For the most part, larger organizations or service providers have these security operations centers that essentially watch these incidents and watch events and logs that are coming in, and utilizing these SIEM systems to massage that information, take all that log data, and find potential anomalies and find potential threats and within those environments. So SIEMs are very powerful services. They're also can be very expensive services. Azure Sentinel has a very good way to consume that service, where it's consumed strictly by the data that's being consumed and the data that's coming into Azure Sentinel. So you can really get a good gauge based on what your environment is ingesting each day in terms of data. So what's beneficial in terms of Azure Sentinel is that it's a very powerful SIEM solution. It utilizes on the back end many of Microsoft's machine learning services for analyzing data, finding anomalies and things of that nature, as well as it's very easy to set up. And if anybody has ever gone down the path of enabling and creating a SIEM solution, generally you're going to pay for the SIEM software and service, and you're going to pay probably a consultant or a service provider a lot of money to also do the consulting and the implementation of it. And Azure Sentinel, being that it's cloud-based and it's on the Microsoft ecosystem, there is a lot of information out there that you could get started yourself or utilize your managed service provider and get a SIEM solution, a cloud-based SIEM solution, stood up and ready to go very short notice. And we'll show that when we talk about the connectors and how to get it started here in the demo. But what this does is it collects, the key thing around the SIEM is it's collecting that data, it's detecting and allowing you to investigate, and allows you to then respond. So those are the key things around it. And one of the issues around just bringing in event logs and trying to manually sort through those is there's a lot, there's a lot of false positives, or you don't necessarily know right away what you're looking at. And a SIEM solution can help, again, filter some of that noise and some of that garbage, and allow you to then look at what really is a vulnerability or a threat within your environment, and allow you to investigate and hunt those suspicious activities very easily, and then respond rapidly and be able to orchestrate different automation tasks as well with different playbooks and runbooks. The key thing around getting Azure Sentinel set up is getting data sources connected. And another nice thing about Azure Sentinel is it connects to all native Microsoft services, whether it's in Azure or Microsoft 365, and it will also utilize and has connections to external solutions such as AWS, CloudTrail, different firewall services like Barracuda or F5 or Palo Alto, and allows that information, those syslogs, to come in and then analyze those logs and all of that information that's being collected by those third-party services as well. And so you can go across your entire network, whether if you have a hybrid network or whether you're utilizing multiple clouds, and you can utilize the Sentinel SIEM as your centralized source. Workbooks then help as a very powerful tool then to analyze and correlate those operations and those different events, and you can learn more about the different trends. So there's many different workbooks for each of those services that allow you to drill down to the activities and summarize what might be happening, what warning events are taking place, and what's coming in terms of those logs and what can be done with those. It gives you a very nice graphical capability to view those as well. Incidents then get created automatically based on the workbooks that you have in place and what you've created and what Sentinel finds in terms of anomalies can create those incidents. You can set that up in each of those data connectors as well, and will then show you and determine what and create a level of what that incident is. So if it's you can see on this graphic, if there's a multi-stage attack being detected in the environment, you can then click on that, assign it to a resource within your administrators or your operators to analyze those and to help to remediate those threats and to investigate, find where that threat's coming from, who is creating that threat, and go from there. Playbooks, again, are a way to then automate those capabilities as well. So if an alert comes in and triggers that alert, it uses Logic Apps as a graphical designer for creating what happens then. So an incident takes place, those connectors, if something comes in through Azure Security Center is triggered, it emails who needs to be emailed. If it's on a virtual machine, or a service that you have a automation runbook in place for, that you can restart it to maybe boot that person out of the system. If it's a brute force attack, and can create some automation within the response as well, not just manually investigating. That might be a quicker way to respond, especially if it's an off hours type incident. And then the hunting piece is really where the Microsoft database comes into play. We're looking now at built-in queries that Microsoft has put in place that are there from Microsoft's intelligence and machine learning capabilities that can then query and run these queries automatically in the back end and find potential threats and create incidents based on these hunting capabilities. So very powerful from a standpoint, if you think of Microsoft and their in the large organization, they're utilizing their own threat intelligence databases to create these hunting run books and these notebooks and the integration with Jupyter notebooks and Python to create these queries and run these queries within the back end, and then create incidents out of that and allow you to continue to monitor threats and potential vulnerabilities based on these queries and the results of these queries. So let's look at Azure Sentinel here quick and how easy it is just to get started within Azure Sentinel. So I'm in the Azure portal and I don't have Sentinel up here, so I'm going to just real quickly type in Sentinel. So first thing we need to do when we get into Azure Sentinel and we're setting up Azure Sentinel is Azure Sentinel works with log analytics, and everything in terms of all of the log files and queries all work within log analytics. And you'll see this when we get into Azure Sentinel is when you go into looking at logs and searching on logs and querying logs, it is exactly the same as if you went directly into a log analytics workspace. So the first and foremost thing that you have to do if you're new to Azure Sentinel and you're creating Azure Sentinel is to create that workspace. I'm not going to do that right now. It happens, within moments, creating a workspace, but I already have one set up within my environment. So I'm just going to click on my workspace. And once you create your workspace, then you connect it to Azure Sentinel. It then takes you right to this location. And you can see here, I've already got right off the bat, I can look and I've got a graphical interface here on events and alerts over time. And you can see I don't have any real alerts because I don't have a environment in my demo environment that's really public facing to anything that's going to create any problems. But I do have some events, and you can see here that I've got, one big event here, which is, and I can click on it and drill down and see what's going on here, and it's going to then run a query, and it's going to show me what's going on here. And I've got some different things in terms of memory and processing that's going on. Nothing major. Different files created, probably around my last demo when I was doing just-in-time virtual machine access. That was really, I think, what's causing this when I'm looking at some of this information, or log files actually probably that were created in the middle of the night here last night. But you can see different anomalies, and the events, you can see that's a big spike, and it's not anything that created an alert or even created an incident on it. It's just an event. So it's not anything that potentially is leaving me exposed or vulnerable to anything. It's just something that really graphically is catching my eye as I go into this dashboard. And if this bar was red, then I'd have to really start doing some investigating, because there's definitely a problem. I got something going on within my environment that's not that could be threatening and dangerous to my network. And I'm going to probably have alerts and incidents that are going to be created as well. But even so, if I've got a red bar in here, I've got to worry about it. Again, I don't have any red bars in here, but you can look over here in terms of anomalies, and you can see again my file events. You can see I have some anomalies in here, which I'm seeing on this graphic as well. Different device events. What's going on with these devices that's popping up within my environment. So you can see right off the bat, I've got some things that I might be beneficial for me to take a little deeper look at. But I don't have anything super urgent because I don't have any alerts or incidents that were created out of it. So I can take my time, and we can sift through what's going on within these logs, or what's going on with that particular resource that's creating this kind of spike. As I go down to configuration, though, here's where now I'm looking at my connectors and what I'm connecting in. And you can see there's 74 connectors. This is, I think, gone up since probably the last time I've been in here. It's constantly increasing the number of connectors as Microsoft validates more third-party sources and services to get in to be utilized within the environment. But you can see many of the standard industry services are in here in terms of firewall manufacturers and partners of Microsoft have been validated in terms of Barracuda, Cisco, F5, Juniper, Palo Alto's in here as well, Okta if you're using single sign-on, and you can see a lot of these going into preview. Proofpoint is new to this environment, is in preview, and what you can do here is you open these connector pages, and for those third-party services, it's going to give you the steps that you need, the prerequisites and the steps to do that, to do the configuration for that third-party service. So very easily steps you through it. Same thing with I can go up to AWS. If you utilize AWS CloudTrail, it tells you exactly what you need to do to get CloudTrail set up and fed into Azure Sentinel. So key things there. For Azure services, again, very easy. Azure Active Directory, I've got identity protection set up, but I don't have Active Directory set up. So I can go right in here, make sure I've got all the correct licenses, and then set up my sign-in logs and my audit logs within Azure Active Directory and apply those changes. I've got a failure here for some reason. Because I've already got something set up. I think the issue is since I already have information protection set up and connected, I can't set up Azure Active Directory. It's taken care of. If I look at identity protection and look up that connection page, that's actually set up already for the Azure Sentinel workspace, and I've got incidents created, and we're ready to go there. So. Azure Defender, I've got all other services within here that I can connect, and we'll talk more about the cloud app security in the next episode as I get into Microsoft 365 security, and we'll go from there. If I look here in hunting, in a moment my hunting queries will come up, and you can see here we can look and see what these are, what the tactics are that are being taken care of within here, and what queries are being run within our hunting queries. So we've got got queries here. We can add them to my favorites. I can run the query. I can add to my live stream, and so if there are things that I want to continually look at, I can look at those from there. If I had any incidents, those will be listed in here, and we can then click on those incidents, assign those incidents to a user, and investigate those incidents. So those are the key things that I wanted to cover and talk about in terms of Azure Sentinel this week. Again, we'll get in a little bit deeper in terms of cloud app security and some of the Microsoft 365 connectors when we talk about that in our first episode of part 2. So I want to thank everybody for attending today and listening to this episode on security in Azure with Azure Sentinel. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the cloud native SIEM of Azure Sentinel and how powerful it can be to help you investigate your threats. You can find me on the social media links provided on this slide, and I will see you next week as we flip the script a little bit to part 2 of the Gimme Shelter series, and we will go into security in Microsoft 365. Thank you very much for attending this series on Gimme Shelter security in Azure. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you will get get notifications when I premiere a new episode every Friday. Thank you very much. Have a great day.